Snow blanketed the hills of Missouri in the bitter winter of 1886 when a black carriage creaked into the town of Camdenton. Its wheels groaned against the ice as two women stepped out, their long black gowns brushing the frosted earth. They were sisters, Eleanor and Clara Whitford, midwives from the East. Their eyes were the first thing people noticed. Eleanor's were soft, tired, and full of quiet sorrow, while Clara's were sharp, cold, and searching, as if always expecting danger. The townsfolk greeted them with suspicion. Camdenton was small, bound together by hard winters, and strangers rarely came. Yet mothers in this town often suffered in childbirth, and skilled midwives were worth more than gold. So, despite their odd manners and chilling silence, the people welcomed them with cautious gratitude. But behind shuttered windows, whispers began, "They wear mourning clothes. They don't smile. There's something wrong about them." The sisters did not deny it. They simply unpacked their tools, prepared their herbs, and waited for the first cry of a child to summon them. It did not take long for rumors to spread about their past. Some said the Whitfords had lost their family in a fire. Others claimed the fire was punishment, that the sisters were witches who toyed with forces they should not. Eleanor carried herself with humility. She offered gentle smiles, warm blankets, and soothing words. But Clara, tall, pale, and stern, rarely spoke. When she did, her words came clipped and final, as if carved in stone. A farmer's wife whispered in the tavern, "They're not like us. They bring the smell of sorrow wherever they walk." Yet when a pregnant woman felt her time near, fear of the sisters mattered less than the fear of losing her child. And so, their services were sought. But with their first delivery, the legend of their curse began. On a freezing January night, lantern light flickered against the walls of a small cabin where a young mother labored. Her screams echoed, mixing with the howl of the wind. Eleanor held her hand, whispering encouragement, while Clara worked with steady precision. At dawn, a baby boy was born, red-faced, healthy, his cries filling the cabin. The mother wept with joy, clutching him to her breast. The family thanked the sisters, praising their skill. But 3 days later, the child grew restless. He refused to feed. By nightfall, his skin turned pale, his breath shallow. On the 7th day, the boy lay lifeless in his cradle. The mother's sobs carried across the snowy fields. The town buried its first newborn of the year and began whispering. It was the sisters. It began when they came. The tragedy might have been dismissed as misfortune, but then it happened again. A second child, born strong, weakened within weeks and died. A third followed, then a fourth. Each time the sisters delivered the babies without flaw, but none survived long. At first, townsfolk blamed illness. Winters in Camdenton were cruel, and fever often claimed the weak. But the pattern became undeniable. Wherever Eleanor and Clara went, death soon followed. Women began to weep as their pregnancies neared, torn between needing the sisters and fearing them. Fathers muttered angrily at the tavern. The word curse began to creep into their voices. And in the dead of night, the sisters prayed alone, one in faith, the other in silence. When her infant daughter died within days, Sarah Hemsley could no longer contain her grief. She stormed into the sisters' home, her hair wild, her face streaked with tears. "You bring death into every cradle," she screamed. "What curse have you carried into Camdenton?" Eleanor fell to her knees. "We only seek to heal. We have never wished this sorrow." But Clara's silence was heavier than any words. She stood in the corner, her dark eyes fixed on the floor, as if she already knew the truth Sarah feared. The grieving mother spat on the threshold and fled. Eleanor sobbed long into the night. Clara, however, sat by the fire and whispered, "Perhaps it is not their fault. Perhaps it is mine." Eleanor pressed her sister to explain, and Clara, with trembling lips, confessed what she had hidden for years. "When I was a child," Clara whispered, "I wished death on our father for his cruelty. I wished it with all my heart, and within the week he was gone. After that, our mother, then our brothers, one by one. Every time I touched them, they grew weaker. I carry a shadow, Eleanor, and it has followed us here." Eleanor recoiled. "No, that cannot be. God would not allow such evil." But Clara's voice was steady. "He has allowed it. I am marked. And now, every child we deliver bears the weight of my curse." Though the sisters spoke little of it, the town felt something unnatural. Children's coffins lined the graveyard hill. Mothers crossed themselves when the sisters walked by. In hushed tones, men called them witches. Women, torn between hope and dread, kept seeking them. For in Camdenton, the choice was cruel: risk death with the sisters, or face childbirth alone. No one yet had the courage to drive them away. But the air grew heavy with suspicion, and the sisters felt eyes burning into their backs wherever they went. Reverend Alden, the preacher of Camdenton, visited their home. His Bible was clutched tightly in his hands. "You must leave," he told them gravely. "Some shadows cling too close to the soul. The people will not endure much longer." Eleanor wept. "We are not witches. We only want to heal." But Clara stood firm, her chin lifted. "If there is a curse, it follows us. If we flee, it will haunt another town. Better we face it here." The Reverend looked into her eyes and saw no fear, only guilt. "Then may God have mercy on you," he said, and left them in the dim glow of their candles. One stormy night, a farmer's wife went into labor. The wind howled like wolves as the sisters trudged through snow, lanterns swinging. Inside the cabin, the birth was long and painful, but finally, a boy was born. His cry rang out strong and loud, echoing like hope itself. The family wept with joy. For weeks afterward, the child thrived. He laughed, he fed, he grew. People began to whisper that perhaps the curse was broken, but Clara's face stayed pale. She watched the child's eyes as if waiting for the shadow to return. "This one is different," she muttered to Eleanor, and her words proved true. At 3 months, the boy, Jonathan, was struck by fever. It came suddenly, like fire in his tiny body. Doctors tried everything, but within days, he was gone. The town's fragile hope collapsed into fury. His mother screamed at the sisters until her voice broke. His father swore vengeance. That night, the town gathered outside the sisters' door with torches, shouting for them to leave. Eleanor begged them for mercy. Clara stepped forward, her voice like iron. "If you drive us away, the curse will follow. It is not this town alone. It is me, and it will not rest until it consumes all it touches." Her words sent a shudder through the crowd. They did not strike, but they did not forgive. They left the sisters in darkness, hated more than ever. The following weeks were tense. Men sharpened blades in the tavern, whispering of justice. Women carried their children tighter, glaring when the sisters passed. Eleanor wanted to flee, to find refuge somewhere far away. But Clara refused. "If we run, more will die. I must face this curse, even if it means my end." The sisters locked their doors at night, the sound of the mob echoing in their dreams. Eleanor refused to give in to despair. She searched old books left by their father, filled with strange remedies and scribbled prayers. She tried herbs, oils, even charms whispered from folk healers. Her faith was simple but fierce. Curses could be broken. She clung to the hope that one day a child would survive. Clara, however, believed only in inevitability. "The shadow will never leave me," she said, "and every soul we deliver will fall." But Eleanor would not stop trying. Despite the fear, mothers still came. Some had no other choice. The sisters made a vow together. "No matter the sorrow, no matter the curse, we will deliver every child with dignity. If they live or die, they will be born into love, not fear." It was a vow that gave Eleanor strength. Clara called it foolish, but even she could not deny the sacred weight of it. One spring, a girl was born under their care. But something strange happened. She did not cry. She opened her eyes wide and stared at Clara, her gaze unblinking. Clara trembled, whispering, "She sees us. She sees the shadow." Eleanor cradled the baby close, whispering prayers. The parents named her Hope. Days passed, then weeks. Hope lived. She smiled, cooed, and grew stronger each day. The sisters visited constantly, expecting the shadow to strike. But it did not. Hope thrived, untouched by death. The town began to whisper. Perhaps she was blessed. Perhaps she was chosen. Some feared her, but others believed she might break the curse. For the first time in years, Eleanor dared to believe in miracles. One night, Clara confessed the full truth. "The curse is mine, Eleanor. When I was young, I cursed our father aloud. I wanted him dead, and death listened. Since then, every life I touch fades. You were spared because you never left my side. But the children, they pay the price for my sin." Eleanor shook with horror. "Then we must find a way to free you." Clara shook her head. "There is only one way." When another mother went into labor, Clara refused to help. "You deliver this one alone," she told Eleanor. Terrified, Eleanor worked by herself. Her hands trembled, but she delivered a healthy boy. Days later, he was still alive. Weeks passed, still alive. For the first time, proof came clear. The curse belonged not to them both, but to Clara alone. Clara broke down in sobs. "Then I know what must be done." The next morning, Clara was gone. Eleanor found a note by her bed. "The curse is bound to my life. If I end it, perhaps the children will live. Forgive me, sister. This is the only way I can give you peace." That evening, Clara's body was found by the river, her hands folded over her chest. Some townsfolk said she drowned herself to lift the curse. Others whispered she gave her soul to death itself. But from that day forward, no child delivered by Eleanor ever died. Eleanor became beloved. She delivered dozens of children in the years that followed. Mothers who once feared her now kissed her hands in gratitude. She raised Hope as her own, watching the girl grow into a bright, compassionate young woman. Where once there had been whispers of curses, now there were prayers of thanks. The graveyard hill grew no larger. The shadow was gone. Years later, Eleanor told Hope the truth of her aunt's sacrifice. "Life is fragile, child. Sometimes we inherit burdens we did not choose. But love is stronger than curses. Your aunt gave her life so others could live. Remember her, not as a monster, but as a woman who loved enough to surrender everything." Hope grew to become a midwife herself. She carried no curse, only gentle hands and a heart full of compassion. The legend of the cursed sisters lived on in Camdenton. But in the end, it was not a tale of death, but of sacrifice, redemption, and love strong enough to shatter darkness.